you needed that sort of wake up call though.
Yes, I needed the rejection to
Mm,
realize that I want to keep playing.
yeah.
And I was not terribly in love with the school itself. I was
Mm,
not in love with the academics. But as soon as he said, "You're not going to play," and I realized what that meant for me, my relationship with football, it meant that I'm not going to play not professional, like a high level of football
yeah.
ever again in my life, unless I like try and join like a team or something like that.
Hmm.
That's what it meant. It meant that I was done with football for the foreseeable future. And when I realized that, it really hit me like, oh, I up.
Like I was one of those guys who was doing everything that was needed to be done. But I used to sometimes feel like, I mean, I ate right, I did all the right things, but then I'm seeing these like Nigerian guys just have chicken wings and fries every day, and then in training they're like just absolutely destroying you. And you were just like, you just don't have what they have. And you have to work like three times more to just have a chance to just be close to getting them or to catching them. This is All Things College and Life. Hi, Jay. Thanks for being here, man. I think I'm seeing you after a couple of years. I end up talking to your mom a lot more than you. So it's nice to actually catch you for this podcast.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's good to see you as well.
Awesome. Cool, man. So why don't we perhaps start with, of course, right now you're at Washington and Jefferson College, which is a liberal arts school in Pennsylvania, and you're on the soccer team as well. And we'll come to that, but there are a couple of steps before that you had taken,
There's a
where
lot
you
of
had
steps.
transferred. Yeah, a lot of steps, but I guess the major ones were, one, you were at Drew and then transferred to WNJ, and then before that you were at Brook House, which is also a school I went to. And I want to actually get started there because, if I'm not wrong, you left in grade 11, right? You spent grade 11 and 12 there?
I don't think so. I think I left more so 10th grade
10th
from
grade?
what I can remember. I definitely spent 11th and 12th there.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm pretty sure I spent half of my 10th grade there because I remember once
Mm.
COVID hit, we were in like kind of a lockdown,
Yeah.
and it was kind of a lockdown, but not really. We just weren't going to classes,
Mm.
and like football has completely stopped here in India. So it was like, what do I do to progress my football? That was the whole reasoning behind trying to go to the UK.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm pretty sure it was mid 10th. I recently met a couple friends that I hadn't seen in a while, and they don't remember me at all in 10th grade. They were like, they told me I left in ninth grade. So
Mm.
unless I'm remembering wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like mid 10th grade I left.
Yeah, that's possible because I remember connecting with you sometime around November or so, and then it happened pretty quickly after that
It
because I
was very
remember.
fast. It was like 2
Yeah,
months, maybe less. I
right.
think I left in like October, something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Fair. So you spent 2.5 years there, but I want to ask you, like, how is that whole transition? Because you were in Sri Ramaravli, I believe, and then you went from that to Brook House, which is in the UK, and it was a proper football system, football academy, and, GCSEs and A levels. So the education was also pretty rigorous. How is the whole process of moving there?
Um, it was fine. I wouldn't say it was too difficult. I would say
Mm,
the most difficult thing was definitely dealing with the weather, because there's no real change. Everyone's still speaking English. Everyone's still a
mm,
person. Everyone still wants to play football. Like there's no like drastic change other than you get there and it's just constantly raining. Which over here it rains in India, but it rains for a couple months and then it shuts down.
yeah.
Um, and then you get rain here or there, but it doesn't rain constantly like it does in the UK, especially where
Mm,
I was, which was Leicester. Um, very muddy, just very gloomy and very raining. It can be depressing at times. So I think that was the
mm,
main change I had to deal with. Other than that, like I was I was still in contact with all my friends from home. I was still, you know, obviously I was getting used to the new school, trying to make friends, all of that stuff. But you're doing what you're doing the same thing every day, you get used to it really fast. When
Yeah.
you're waking up, you're going to classes, you're playing football, you're going to sleep. You get used to that pretty much faster, and you have less time to think about all the changes you're making because you're constantly
Mm.
moving. I think once we got there, after a while, COVID hit the UK really hard, and Mr. Boris Johnson shut everything down. And I think when that happened, it started to set in a bit more like, oh, I'm
Mm.
like locked in my room. I can't go outside. I can't play football. I can't do what I came here to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of sitting there in my room. And it's like, oh, now I'm like, I'm pretty far away from home. I don't
Yeah.
have my friends with me. The time difference is hitting. Like,
Mm.
even though it's not a lot, it does hit eventually.
Yeah.
And then that kind of snowballed into me realizing like, yeah, okay, I'm in a different place now.
Mm.
So until then, I mean, occasionally I was with international students most of the time, but occasionally when you ran into like a really British person, you'd just be like, haha, I'm in the UK. That's pretty much it.
Fair. That's when you realize and it hits you. Fair.
Yeah.
And Brook House had a lot of international students. I mean, even
I
in
think
my
it's
time, we
mostly international. I think we had
yeah.
like one British kid there because the whole work visa thing, there's no reason for a British kid to be joining a school like Brook House. They should be
Mhm.
directly trying to filter themselves into an academy if they want to
Right.
go down the soccer route. Brook House is honestly, if you are a UK citizen, it's not worth it. I think if
Yeah.
you're an international student, it's definitely something maybe you should give a shot to.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're a UK citizen, you can just go directly into an academy anyways. So.
Yeah. How is the football adjustment? Because I'm sure that would have been a big that was a big change. I mean, when I went, I felt that because more than anything, I think just the speed of play and the pace of the game was so much faster. But how is your experience just adjusting to the game rather than, let's say, the academics and all that? I think you've covered that vaguely with that response because you didn't feel a big change, but I'm sure football would have felt a bit different.
Yeah. I don't know, just because I think when I was in India, I played in I League. I played for a team called Constant,
Hmm.
and just with how the system is and how India in general is, and how certificates and stuff like that are hard to come by, uh, that are at least authentic for most people. And
Hmm.
I think the people I ended up playing against as a kid, although they never really admitted it, I think
Hmm.
some of them did on the side to like their friends, and somehow it got back to us. They were not our age. We were playing under 18s, we were playing under 17s, whatever it may be. No one was our age. Everyone was 20, 22, sometimes even older. Like,
Hmm.
you can tell just by looking at them. I know Indians tend to grow facial hair much sooner, but these guys had beards up to like here. They had fully developed physiques, which I'm not saying you can't do that by the age of 18. Many people can. It's just
Hmm.
unlikely. And, the way they talk, it's definitely like they grew up in a different place than I did. And that's whatever. That ends up being why they talk the way they do. But they were
Yeah.
just very much more mature than us. Oh,
Hmm.
sorry. Um, they were very much more mature than us, and you could tell that they were much used to their body and using their physicality. Where, as a kid, you're kind of taught more to use your technical abilities and develop those first. And so I think physicality doesn't really come into play until you're like doing under 18s or something.
Yeah.
Until then, it's all about who's the fastest, who can dribble the best, who can shoot the best. Um, and once you hit 18 and you realize that it's all about physicality, then then they start bringing in players. At least the other teams did. My team did. The other teams start bringing in players who have that physicality, and a lot of the times they have fake passports for whatever reason. They have fake birth certificates, or
Hmm.
or the team forges them. This is like a whole different topic because this goes into like
Yeah.
how it's all corrupt and stuff. But
Hmm.
either way, I think I ended up playing with players much older than me and much more mature than me at a younger age, and that kind of made me like realize I have to be physical. I don't have a lot of strength, but I feel like I know how to use my body somewhat well when it comes to defending,
Fair.
or at least draw out a foul. put your body in front of them, make them push you. Like there's certain things you can do even if you're not stronger or bigger than the other person. And
Hmm.
so when I made that transition to the UK, where even though people are our age, everyone is bigger, everyone is stronger, because that's just how they've been raised. They grew up playing soccer or football their entire life, and they've been raised for this purpose, or they've raised themselves for this purpose. I was not raised for that purpose. I didn't start playing soccer until I was like 12.
Yeah.
Um, so having gone there and started playing with those kids, the physicality was fine. The British football is anyways like a way more physical sport
Right.
than anywhere else in the world. Uh, the physicality was fine. I was putting in slide tackles. I was doing what I needed to do. But the real difference, the real gap came in the technicality.
Hmm.
The people who were teaching them and the way they were taught is just completely different from like where I was back in India, and the level was completely different. And as soon as you get there, they are so technical. They don't make many mistakes. They keep the ball close to them. It's hard to get the ball off them without
Yeah.
fouling them. And I think that was the main separator between the levels that I was starting at there and the levels that people were starting at there at my age, was they
Yeah.
had just their technicality was off the charts.
Right.
They could run
I
you in
agree.
circles and you wouldn't realize it. Yeah.
That's a great insight. And I had the same experience, I think, because I think at 15 or 16, you're still trying to develop a lot of technical skills. And I remember, like, I mean, just passing one touch and playing one touch football, two touch football was not something you did a lot. Or even if you did do it, it was just done at a slower speed. And suddenly that speed was just much quicker. It was like 0.15x in some ways. And now you're just like, you're losing the ball. And the quicker you're becoming, you're realizing you don't have that technical ability, that it doesn't come naturally to you. uh, so yeah, I think I noticed that as well, that what they knew at 15 was very different to what we knew, what our ability was. uh, and when I say our, I mean a lot of the young Indians like you and me who had gone and played overseas as well. A lot of my friends had the same experience. And I think another thing that I specifically picked on is that at that age, coaches are teaching you the tactical side of the game, which is like, how do you win and how do you really come out if you're winning 1-0, but the team is on you, you're being dominated. How do you still see the win in the last 20 minutes? Rather than how do you start moving the ball one touch and two touch? That's not their focus at that point. So yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's a great.
they come in with the expectation that, like these British kids, you
Hmm.
have been taught all the basics and they've been
Right.
burnt into you since you knew how to walk.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and yeah, once you get to 14, 15, if you've been doing that regularly and you've been training since you were young, you're gonna have all the basics down. You just you need to develop your mental, how you think about the game and stuff. So definitely I came in and it was hard for me to execute some of the stuff they were asking me to do because I didn't know how
Mhm.
to ping a ball from like one end of the pitch to the other. Like I couldn't do that at that time.
Yeah.
I had like scrawny little legs. Um, I didn't have the technique to hit a ball like that, and
Mm.
so I couldn't execute those things they wanted me to execute, especially as a midfielder when I came in.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's what kind of pushed me out of the midfield role was there was just so many demands of a midfielder. I could
Mhm.
fill a few of them, but then there'd be so many other of them which were like I just can't do that.
And there were
So
other midfielders who probably could, which
it could do it
automatically
with like
ease.
100 times better because they've
Yeah.
been practicing how to do that one
Yeah.
thing. They just didn't know how to execute it. The coach tells them how to execute it, and they do it perfectly, and then they're fine. Right?
Yeah. Makes sense. And
Yeah,
that obviously you got pushed to defender.
I
The
did.
same
I got
same
pushed
story
to
as me.
center back, which is not. I mean, it's not much different than a CDM
Yep.
because as
Especially
a
if you play
CDM,
out from the back.
yeah, and as a CDM, you're falling back a lot of the times anyways.
Right.
And I really enjoyed the fact that we were now playing at the back, because when you play in India, it's
Hmm.
not like we don't wanna play at the back, it's the fact that if we try and make a pass more than 5 feet, it will bobble up and, like, go the wrong direction, and you'll never see the ball again.
Yeah.
So it's kinda dangerous to play at the back over here. It's more so what the fields are like and what the pitches are like,
Right.
which I feel kinda holds you back in terms of what you can do. Like,
True.
obviously, you can still do passing, but the chances of you executing it well are
Yeah.
much less likely than if you did it in the
Yep.
UK, where most pitches are nice, stuff like that. Like, of course, we
Very
had
true.
many people have great pitches in India. I just did not grow up with a good pitch, and bobbly balls are not fun for defenders, so you're scared to play out the back,
Yeah.
when you're here. But when you're there, it's more like you wanna
Yeah.
play out the back.
Fair. Cool. Quick question on the Brook House experience before we move on to college. Uh, I don't know how to exactly put it, but do you think the experience was worth it? Are you happy with what you got and what it made you realize, perhaps your chances of professional football and things like that? And should others be doing this as well?
Okay. I think it was worth it, to put it blunt. Um, uh, I think the experiences I gained as a person there are worth more than the experiences I gained there as an athlete.
Hmm.
I think, um, when you are even, like, middle class in India, you have a
Hmm.
level of privilege that you do not realize at all,
Yeah.
because you're kept in such a bubble, and once you leave that bubble, you realize how privileged you were,
Hmm.
um, in your situation, and once I got there, I really had to start, like, mostly fending for myself. I mean, I wasn't, like, earning money or anything, but I
Hmm.
was, like, doing basic things that I had never done for myself before, and I think that was really good, especially because, I mean, if you wanna stay abroad, if you wanna come back to India, sure, you don't need to
Yeah.
learn that stuff. I'm sure if you're middle class, someone will be doing that for you,
Hmm.
but that's not the case for most people, and I think definitely if you go abroad, that is not happening. You have to do things yourself, and you have to figure out things yourself, and
Yeah.
a lot of the responsibility of you living is on yourself. And I think going to the UK really taught me how to do all those things,
Hmm.
so that when I got to college, I wouldn't be like a lost puppy, like not knowing what to do, or like building up two like stairs tall
Yeah.
bags of laundry, like um or dishes. Like, you realize what you have to do and how to do it, and you figure it out, or you
Hmm.
ask someone. Most of the time, you just figure it out. But I think, yes, the experiences you gain as a person are invaluable. Uh, and then the experiences you gain as a athlete are great as well. They really instill into you what it means to be at the level of someone who is prospected to go pro.
Yeah.
Like, how much work they put in, and the difference between what their day is like and what your day is like, and what changes you have to make in order to catch up to them,
Hmm.
or in most cases even have a chance of catching up to them, because they are so incredible, you don't even realize it until you, like, see it.
Yeah.
Um, in person, at least. Like, you can watch Messi as much as you want on the screen and be like, "Yeah, I can do that." But, like, if you do it, you're doing it to, like, you know, kids who haven't been training like that their entire life. Once you get to bigger
Right.
stages, you're all on the same playing field. You all have been doing the same things. Whether you can distinguish yourself there is what really matters. And people there can distinguish themselves, and that's what made them great. So being able to watch them was really like, wow, I'm not doing enough. I need to do
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Um, and so that is also really important. It really teaches you like what you have to do to in order to go pro, and they help you with that. It's not like they just tell you. They
Right.
help you. They make you go to the gym. They make you train. They make sure you're there for breakfast. They make sure you're doing well in your classes. These are all things necessary in order to be a successful athlete
Hmm.
now and in the future. Because in the future, if you're not being disciplined now, you're not going to be disciplined in the future. You're going to miss practices. Even if you get
Yeah.
into a team, you miss a couple of practices, no matter how like insane you are, they're not gonna let you stay.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's really important as well. So I do think it was worth it. But one piece of advice I would give to anyone who is thinking about doing this is
Hmm.
definitely think about what you're giving up. I think before I left, I was not thinking about, at all about what I was giving up. I was only thinking about what I was gaining from doing
Yeah.
this, and sometimes that's not as important as what you're giving up. You really have to sit down and weigh it. My process happened during COVID,
Hmm.
so I felt like I didn't have time and that if I wanted to make it happen, I needed to do it now. That was just a feeling I had. That was definitely
Yeah.
not the case. I could have waited a year if I wanted to and made this decision. But I was rash and I did it in 2 months. There are things I definitely regret because I didn't weigh those decisions well.
Hmm.
Um, I left during 15, 16. That is a very crucial time for a teenager. Um, and so you miss out on a lot of experiences with your home area, but you're
Sure.
gaining a lot in return. You're gaining,
Right.
at least if you're leaving from India, you're gaining independence, individuality. Um, you're learning a lot about the sport that you love. You're learning about, what makes an athlete great. All these things are amazing, but you need to understand you're giving up your hometown friends, you're giving up time with family, you're giving up your entire wherever you grew up, at least for those 2 years. And most people don't realize it. Unless you're coming back to your hometown to do college,
Yeah.
you're done with this place. You are not spending a lot of your life in this place ever again. Um, as much as this is my home, I've spent it like over the course of the last 4 years since I left. Um, I think I've spent a total of maybe 4, 5, or like 6 months home. Out of those 4 years, I spent 6 months worth of days in this place at home.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of time, and that's a lot of time away. And you have to like weigh your options and really consider, is this worth, sacrificing all of this,
Yeah.
um, and all this time that you lose. And there's a lot of incredible things going on with football in India as well. And before anyone decides to go abroad, you should look home first and see what is there around me and is it worth it? I think in my scenario, it for football, it was worth it because I think COVID like had India locked down. Like I talked to my friends
Yeah.
about it. They did not go to classes for like 10th grade, 11th grade, and like a little bit into 12th grade apparently.
Right.
And that's a long time. And if
Yeah.
football wasn't going on that entire time, yeah, that's a lot of time you give up of the sport you love, and that's a
Yeah.
lot of time wasted in building your potential to maybe go pro or do something with this in the future.
Sure.
Um, Now I think when I got to Brook House, I learned that I was not going pro. And I think that was the main thing I got out of it was just realism, and you realize what's out there and the people that are out there. Like I said, you compare your life to the people who are really striving to go pro, and
Hmm.
it's just like I'm not doing the things they're doing. And if I'm not doing more than what they're doing, I cannot beat them, and
Correct.
they're gonna get that position instead of me, right? So I think I realized, yeah, I have not invested enough time in this since I was young,
Hmm.
and that is very detrimental. Not saying that you can turn it around, but turning around is very hard.
Yeah.
Once you're like past the age of 10, the amount of time and effort you have to put in is ridiculous while trying to learn the tactics, while trying to build your body. Like it's all very difficult, and if you're gonna do it, you have to do it from a very young age.
Yeah. Fair. That was a. I think you put all of this really well because touched a nerve there for me as well. Because I mean, I think for me, I came back after college, and I remember my first Diwali here. I was like 22, and it just kind of hit me. I was like, I have not done Diwali in India for 7 years because I was away for like high school and then college, and yeah, and then it starts to. I realized there were certain places I didn't know about. There were certain like where your friends hung out, the spots, and especially if you return back and you're trying to settle back in, it's so hard because you're right about the fact that during those high school years, especially like grade 11 and 12, you're changing a lot. The places you hang out, the new friends you've made in school, the groups that have been formed, because they're also leaving school together, so that kind of goes into college. uh, I had to make like a huge effort to kind of come back into some of those groups, come back into some of those friendships, because the moment I left, I was only in touch with very close friends, but I had completely lost touch with like the group setting and the group dynamic. And luckily that actually started happening in the summer after grade 12 when we were all back. uh, so luckily, like, I sort of caught up. But yeah, you're right. I mean, absolutely, I think you do lose out on a lot as well. And I think the biggest thing is that when that pro goal does not happen, you realize, you kind of question, like, was it worth it, or what did I do
You
that for?
think maybe
But
you
you're
wasted
right. I
your
mean, I,
time.
I always tell myself that, well, it kind of developed you into the person you are now. And it was the same for me. Like, if you met me before my Brook House days, I was not the person you see today. I would not even talk the same way. I was just a very uh, rowdy kind of a kid who just, all I knew was to play football, and that's it. And so Brookhouse like definitely shaped me quite a lot. And then of course college did a lot of good as well. So yeah, I think when I look back at football, I know it did a lot of good to me, and you just have to focus on that and not worry about what you missed out on. But you're absolutely right. And even about the pro aspect, I think, the point you mentioned, that you're so honest about the fact that you weren't doing enough once you saw those guys turn pro. And chances are not a lot of those Brookhouse guys who were with you also turned pro. Maybe like one or two from here and there may have, but what it goes to show is that even with that hard work, it just really doesn't guarantee anything. And I think like I did a lot of hard work. Like, I was one of those guys who was doing everything that was needed to be done, but I used to sometimes feel like, I mean, I ate right, I did all the right things, but then I'm seeing these like Nigerian guys just have chicken wings and fries every day, and then in training they're like just absolutely destroying you. Uh, and you were just like, you just don't have what they have, and you have to work like three times more to just have a chance to just be close to getting them or to catching them. And the same thing for me like translated into college as well. Like, I was at a high division 2 school where we were like competing for the national championship every year, so we were reaching nationals and finals and semifinals every single year. And we had a team of like 40 people, and it was just hard to just be in the top 18. So I used to be on the bench a lot, but it was such a hard job just to be on the bench because most people were not even there. They weren't even in the traveling squad. And I remember some of these Brazilian guys who would just dribble past me as if I wasn't even there. And you would just be like, you're really thinking about going pro? Because those guys never turned pro. That's the interesting part. Like, those guys who were that good didn't actually turn pro. And so yeah, it's I think this is a topic we can keep going on and on about. But switching to college, I want to just talk to you about how obviously recruitment process happened while you were at Brookhouse. We were working together, communicating with coaches, all that happened. And then you got to Drew, which is in New Jersey, Division 3. And how is that experience?
Um, I think it was. I think it was necessary. It was another necessary step. I think I think at that point I had kind of fallen like out of love with soccer. I
Mm.
think calling it soccer, but I
Well,
think
we've moved from UK to America now, so
yeah, I think kind of fell out of love with it.
mm,
When you realize that uh that you're not going pro, it's
mm,
kind of like a okay, now I'm just playing soccer for the sake of playing soccer. I was in Brook House for the sake of I had been there until 11th at this point, and I was like, I might as well just do one more year. Like, there's no
mm,
like I might as well. I'm here now. If I go back to India, I'm probably gonna have to like stay back a year to like recoup the info that they got in 11th and 12th, and then give
right,
my like SAT whatever I needed to. It just was not worth it, and I was doing fine in A levels, so I was just like, I'm just gonna do A levels, and then that way, I won't have to like do anything um major to get into college, especially with soccer. It
yeah,
helps out. Um, and at that point, I think you didn't have to take an SAT to get into college, just
right. It's optional.
um because of COVID. They had like said that oh, it's fine. So I thought I'll stay here. I'll play soccer some more. Hopefully, it'll help me like develop my game a little bit more, and I'll use soccer as a way to get into college. And I did get into college with soccer, but I think once I got there, I was like, oh, do I really care about soccer that much?
Mm,
And what I did make there was really amazing friends. My freshman year friend group was so fun, and we all were very close,
yeah.
and we loved each other very much, and we just had constant fun, constantly laughing every day.
Hmm.
Like, it was amazing. It was so much fun. I
Oh,
unfortunately carried over an injury from my last year at Brookhouse to my first year in college, and
mm,
that prevented me from playing my entire like first season at
yeah.
Drew, which was unfortunate. And um, but I was able to get through it because I had such good friends that I was just like having the time of my life regardless. I had honestly at this point I had kind of just like pushed soccer to the side. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
here. I'm just gonna like enjoy my life with my friends and uh, academics to the best of my abilities.
Right.
And I think I realized
Hmm.
that that was not gonna cut it with the coaches and stuff. And by the time my end of my first year at Drew, end of spring semester, I
Yeah.
had made the best friends in the world, inseparable, always laughing every single day. But my coaches like maybe saw that I wasn't really interested in soccer anymore, or they also didn't get to see much of me
Right.
because in my first year I didn't play.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
on the bench because I was injured the entire time. Whatever small appearance I made, I think I made like 30 minutes of appearances that
Hmm.
year. Um, and then spring came around, and then the coach told me like, okay, well, if you stay here, you're not gonna play
Hmm.
because he's bringing in more freshmen. This that, like he just told me like you're not gonna play.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I had to make a decision. And because I pushed soccer to the side so much at this point, I didn't think this would affect me as much. But as soon as he said, you're not going to play, and I realized what that meant for s- my relationship with football, it meant that I'm not going to play not professional, like a high level of football ever again in my life, unless I like try and join like a team or something like that. That's what it meant. It meant that I was done with football for the foreseeable future. And when I realized that, it really hit me like, oh, I up. I needed that. I needed someone to like punch me in the face and be like, is this actually what you want? And I hated my coach at the time as well. He was not very good to me and my teammates and just in general. I just did not like him. And that I think that also when you get a bad coach, it also makes you fall out of love with the sport.
Yeah.
Um, and so all this leading up, I finally get told this, and I'm like, shit. Like my entire like stomach just sinks, and I feel so bad. And I call my mom, I start bawling, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to like stop playing soccer anymore. Um, I want to keep playing. And I realized in that moment, I do still love the sport. I just didn't realize it. And I was distracted by all these things. And I didn't like the coach. And he had made me fall out of love with the sport, but I really still loved the sport because I would not
Yeah.
have this reaction if I had already given up on the sport. I
Mm.
knew many people there who were seniors at this point or juniors at this point at Drew who had left the team, also mostly because of the coach, but who had left the team, and they had left the team willingly because they had the same reaction where they had fallen out of love in
Yeah.
the sport, and they had nothing like the reaction I did. They were
Mm.
fine. They were content. They had made their decision. I was still playing football with my friends whenever we got the chance. Like
Yeah.
even once season ended and I was finally like recovered from my injury, whenever there was an opportunity for us to go play like anywhere on like a grass pitch or just a regular stadium, I would always go with them. I would have so much fun. And for some reason when it came to training with the coach, I had some sort of angst in my heart. I don't know what it was,
Yeah.
but um I realized I did still love the sport because I would not be reacting like this.
Yeah.
And
You needed that sort of wake up call though.
yes, I needed the rejection to
Mm.
realize that I want to keep playing.
Yeah.
And I was not terribly in love with the school itself. I was
Mm.
not in love with the academics. I was doing art as my major at that time. I was
Mm.
not in love with that major. I did not care about most people at the school other than my really close friends who were the freshmen on the soccer team. We were just really tight knit. And I had no real attachment to the school. So I started asking myself, am I done here? Do I move
Yeah.
on? And it was a really hard decision to make because of my friends. And
Right.
I don't think I'll ever make friends as good as that, like ever again. I think the last time I had friends as good as that was like 8th grade. Um, it was it was so amazing. I love them so much. And to this day, I still keep in touch with them.
Right.
I know what happened with me and my friends. I had the same thing that you had when I went to the UK. I really fell out of touch with my friends here.
Yeah.
And you don't put in that effort at the time because you think you're distracted by so much and you think you don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Another piece of advice is you have time. You make time. T- just talk to your friends. You won't
Yeah.
regret it if you try your best to keep in touch with them. And I did not keep in touch with them. And so I lost most of my friends back here other than really close friends like you said. Um I I've done my best ever since I left Drew to keep in touch with them, and I still keep in touch with them, and I talk to them. And when I'm in New Jersey, a lot of them live near New Jersey. I try and meet up with them as much as possible, and I'd say
Mm-hmm.
I'm still pretty good friends with them. Um, so I talked to them. They begged me to not go, and I think at that point I would already made the decision. Like I kept telling them, like I'll think about it, I'll think about it, but I knew that I was going, and I just didn't know how
Mm.
to say it. Um, so I reached out to you,
Yeah.
and you helped me, and my mom helped me, and we eventually um, entered the transfer portal. I told my
Right.
coach, and that summer was just really hectic. And that summer was us. What summer was that? Was that 22,
I
22,
think
23?
it's so hard to remember. I think it's
This is my
23.
third semester at W&J.
Yeah, that's 23.
23.
23 spring you finished, and then 23 fall you started in
Summer.
WNJ.
Yeah. So that summer was all about just like finding somewhere new.
Yeah. And that wasn't the easiest because you had
No.
no
It was
footage
very
from your first year at Drew. It was all
and
like Brook House.
it was very last minute and it was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
rushed.
Yeah.
And it could have gone very wrong.
Yeah.
So, um, we'll get to talking about W&J, but that was basically my whole reasoning behind
Mm,
why I wanted to leave and my story drew. And I really realized that I just love football and I wasn't willing to give it up even at the expense of
yeah.
the really good friends I had made. I thought these next 3 years were more important,
Yeah.
and I think I did make the right decision. Like I said, we'll get to that, but yeah.
At this point, I would say I agree as well. I mean, I think you've learned your lesson with your like Sriram friends perhaps and your India friends that cool, I need to stay in touch with the new bunch of friends that I've made, and considering how close knit you guys all became. So as long as you're doing that, you're making the effort to meet them from time to time because you're not that far off from them, from W&J. So obviously that was going to be possible, but I think the thing that you weren't ever going to get back was playing college soccer again, right? So Jay, then after Drew, of course, you moved to W&J and successfully transferred, got recruited on the team, and now it's been a year and a half there, 3 semesters, like you said earlier. Uh, and how has that experience been now?
It's been great. It's really I think I really used everything that I learned from my experience at Drew. Um my academics were not good at Drew at all.
Mm,
And I think it was mostly because I was distracted by my friends and etc. And friends should not be distracting. You should have great friends, but they should not distract you from things that are actually important. I think once I came here, I really focused up and I zoned in um
mm,
on soccer and academics, and friends kind of just trickled themselves in along the way.
yeah.
And now that I'm at my third semester, I can happily say I have great friends, and I'm very happy to know all of them. Um, but the academics and sports, like you said, you can't get back. So I really locked in on the academics and I really locked in on the sports.
Mm,
And I ended up starting my first semester there. My first season there. I've had 2 seasons there now. I started my first season there. I played right back, surprisingly. But I started almost every single game. I think I missed 2 games because I was injured. Other than that, it
yeah.
was a lot of fun, and I think it was great because I moved so that I could continue my career,
Hmm.
and I was doing exactly that. I was getting time. I was playing. That was the whole reason I moved. And during the transfer process, I realized that what was really kind of holding me back was definitely my grades as well. I did not have the greatest of grades, and I mean, I don't mind saying, I think it was like a 2 something, maybe like a 2.4, 2.6. I think the minimum to like stay on the team is a 2. I think I was just about averaging a 2.4 or 2.6.
Yeah.
That really did not help me trying to transfer. I mean, nobody's really looking at that and like blowing their mind like, "Oh, this kid didn't play his entire semester, his entire season freshman year, and he has bad grades. He's trying to
Mm,
transfer. It doesn't look very good." Luckily, W&J gave me a chance, and I'm very grateful for that. Um, and so once I came here, I realized this is important. You need to focus.
yeah.
And so I ended up doing really good my first year with academics. My combined GPA for my first and second semester of my sophomore year, I think was like a 3.2, 3.4, which is a big jump for me to make. Um, and then soccer as well, really good. Started almost every game. We didn't end up making playoffs, unfortunately. I think our there was a lot of imbalance on our team, a little bit
Mm,
of toxicity, but I was just playing. I was happy to be there. I was not getting involved in any of the drama. I was just kicking the
yeah.
ball, um, and having a good time. And so I really enjoyed my first year there. It really like I really fell back in love with the game, I would say.
Oh, man.
Um, and that really helped my drive to do well in both academics and football.
Yeah.
When you're doing well at something, you want to keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
That's the basic consensus.
You
And
also got
so,
the, I don't know if you know this or not, because your mom's very careful with this. But from time to time, she keeps sharing updates with me on how you're doing, and sometimes even how like Ria's doing. But she told me that you made the dean's list, and then she told me don't tell Jay about it because he doesn't
well, I
like
was telling her
advertising
not to
us.
go around telling people because it's embarrassing for you to just be like so hyped up about my grades um
No, but
for
I
me.
mean, I get that because it's, exactly like you said, you came from like a 2.6 to like now making the dean's list. So there was a huge
It
difference
was
in
huge,
perhaps.
and I think I always had, like, my mom would always tell me like you are smart, and I
Hmm,
didn't believe I was smart. But
hmm,
once I start like sitting down and applying myself, I'm not saying I'm smart. There's people way smarter than me. But once you start actually applying yourself and putting in the time and effort, it does leaps and bounds for you. And I
yeah,
think that's the main thing is time and effort. It's not about how smart you were in high school, how talented you were in high school at studying. It doesn't matter. I was putting in like 6-hour shifts. And when you do that sort, obviously you should do it with regards to your mental health and not push yourself to the point where you're not,
sure.
doing well. But if you can put in that effort, it will show results. And I think that's what
Yeah,
happened with me. I really sat myself down and I really made sure I put in the time, even if it was like an hour a day, 2 hours a day, just get everything done and do it well, and you'll be fine. And most of the time, if you pay attention in class, you won't need to study. I
hmm,
think that's what people don't really realize in college is and in high school is it's not really about how much you study outside of your classes, it's how well you absorb and pay attention to the material while you're in class. Your
hmm,
teachers are teachers for a reason. Some of them don't know how to teach. I can vouch for that, but a lot of them do know what they're doing. And if you
hmm,
listen to them and you follow their instructions, you will not need to study outside of academics. I think what a lot of people and a lot of athletes where they make their mistake in college is they're so tired
yeah,
from like doing all these things, like going to training, coming back from training. Sometimes they go out, they do things with their friends. If you just sacrifice a little bit, go to bed a little bit earlier, and wake up so that you're fresh in class, and then just sit down in class and absorb the material instead of like sleeping or whatever you may be doing in class,
yeah,
you will have a lot more time to focus on your sport because you don't have to
sure.
study as much,
Yeah,
and academics will be way less of a burden. Because I think for most student athletes, the student part is a huge burden for them.
hmm,
And if you just do this simple thing, I think you'll be fine.
yeah. It's good
Um,
advice.
I mean, even this year, I've picked up the GPA even more, so I'm very happy about that. Um,
Glad to hear
just
that.
keep it simple. No need to do anything fancy. You don't need like the newest iPad to study or whatever to make you like a genius. But if you just keep it simple and just pay attention in your classes, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Soccer as well. You have to put that little bit more effort. I think what I was finding was I was really not physically fit.
Hmm.
My technicality was there, but I wasn't physical at all. So you just need to wake up, go for your jogs, make sure you're hitting the gym consistently. If you have the ability inherently, everything else will follow.
Yeah.
Um, as for the shift, as in going to a new school,
Hmm.
if you're on a team, if you're playing college soccer, I think you never have to worry about friends. You will
Yeah.
never have to worry about making friends or trying to reach out to people to find new friends. A lot of people asked me like, "Oh, you're moving in your sophomore year. Aren't you nervous because you have to make all these new friends that you're leaving? You left your friends behind. You have to make all these new friends. Aren't you nervous about making new friends?" If you're a part of a soccer team, it is a cheat code. You never have to make
Yeah.
friends. You just if you kick a ball for 2 seconds with someone, you become best friends with them. It's just
Yeah.
how it works. So I'm very grateful about that. So I was instantly friends with most people on the team,
Yeah.
and I'm very happy with them. They're very nice friends, and um hang out with them as much as possible. As academics gets harder, it gets harder as well, but you have to just keep making that effort. And even if you don't, if you're in season, you still
Yeah.
play football with them for 2 hours, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like you still get to see them every day. So, like I
Right.
said, there's just, like, a automatic friendship that develops. And, so the change was pretty easy with the friends part. Um, what I wasn't used to was not seeing as much like variety and what's the word? Starts with a D.
Diversity.
Di- Diversity and yeah, I guess it's diversity. Um it's mostly white people in
Mm,
Pennsylvania. In the middle of
mm,
Pennsylvania, like kind of in the middle of nowhere, a lot of white people. I think this is the first time I was like even though it's a liberal college,
yeah.
like Drew because of where it's located in New Jersey. New
Right.
Jersey is inherently like very diverse, and
Yeah.
especially like New Jersey, New York, they're very diverse. And so Pennsylvania is a much more niche um
Yeah.
state. And so it's mostly just people that were born there and live there. Like most of my teammates, most of my friends, they've lived in Pennsylvania or Ohio their entire life. Nobody's really from anywhere like too far away.
Hmm.
Um and so it's mostly just white people. And so you that change was a little jarring, like, oh, there's like no Indians here that I can relate to, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Again,
There's an Indian
um
coming your way in the upcoming fall. We have
to W and
I
J.
yeah, he's a golfer, so he'll be
Oh,
joining in fall of 25.
there's still like a couple of Indians, but it's not as apparent as it was in New
Yeah, yeah,
Jersey.
makes sense.
um I say this not to like say like, oh, white people. No, white people are great. I love white people.
Yeah,
Um, I love all people. Everyone there is an absolute gem. All of them are so nice and have been nothing but good to me.
mm,
And um, I think a lot of people when they go abroad, they're kind of I bring this up to say that a lot of people when they go abroad, they go to new places, they're scared because all these people they've never had to interact with before or met before,
yeah,
especially from coming from India where the only people around you are Indian.
mm,
You go there and you're meeting all these different type of people. Don't don't like be scared. Get don't judge a book by its cover. Just go up and talk to them. All of them are great.
yeah,
All of them are very nice people.
yeah,
And um you hear a lot of horror stories online about, how people are treated and stuff about racism and stuff. That is like 0.2% of
yeah.
the
It's rare.
population.
Correct.
Those people get a bad rep because of these people that mess up and do racist stuff and say racist things. But the only reason that's what you're seeing is because that's what sells numbers for the
That's what.
media,
Yeah,
right?
that's what the news covers, and
Yes, they're
exactly.
not gonna like an article about a firefighter saving like all these different diverse people, whatever,
Yeah,
a firefighter saving a kitten from like a tree is not gonna do as well as
yeah,
a white person burning down someone's house because they were of a different color. That
sure.
is not. It's just not gonna do as well in the media. And so that is what you see, but that is not what most people are like.
Yeah,
Most people are
yeah,
very nice. Most people don't care about any of that stuff. And you will have to go out of your way in order to find the bad people. They
hmm.
still exist and
Oh, they
um
exist everywhere. So
they exist everywhere, but most people are not like that and you have to go out of
yeah,
your way to
yeah,
search for those. And
yeah.
so as long as you're nice to everyone, everyone will be nice to you. There's no reason to be scared to talk to anybody no matter where they're from or however they look.
Wow, I cannot believe, Jay. I mean, I think we interacted like 4 years ago, and can't believe you're sitting here and giving all this advice. It's amazing to see. So I think just a really good journey that you've had so far, just from Brook House and realizing and the things about turning pro, but taking the right lessons away from Brook House into college, and then dealing with a lot of stuff there, falling back in love with football and doing well academically. I think just some amazing things that have happened for you. And I hope it stays that way going forward as well. Quick question though, just a last one very quickly. You mentioned your major was art at Drew, and I'm guessing you've changed that now. So what's your
Yes.
current major?
So I'm now doing psychology with hopes of doing sports psychology in the future.
Nice. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, it's
Good
gonna
man.
take me through post grad
Yeah.
and this and that. So it's gonna be a
Yeah.
long journey, but I think it's something that I'm interested in. I definitely
Hmm.
want to stay in the sports field, even though I can't be an athlete anymore after
Yeah.
college. I want to be surrounded by sports because it is something
Yeah.
I love. It's something that gives me excitement and joy. And
Yeah.
so I think staying around it would be a good decision. And
Fair.
sports psychology is something I've always been good at. And
Yeah.
sports psychology is a very new and upcoming field
Yeah.
now that people are being more aware of how important their mental health is in order to succeed as an athlete.
Correct.
Um, I think there's a lot of opportunities popping up for that. So
Yeah. Super man. I think that sounds good, and I'm excited to perhaps catch you again in a year or year and a half as you get closer to
more
graduation
than
as well.
happy. I will be
Awesome.
back.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this, Jay. This was fantastic. I think you brought back a lot of memories and sort of emotions back for me as well in and around football. I mean, the thing you spoke about falling out of love, it happened to me post college. I was still trying to turn pro after as well. And then I think it was happening for me, but happening at a level which I wasn't happy about. And the level I wanted to play at wasn't happening. And I went through the same thing. I think I played football for 3 months. And then after that, for like a whole year, I just did not play and I wasn't bothered. And then I played again for a few years. And now I haven't been playing much, but like I still love the sport. I mean, I just find it hard to find the time. So I end up doing more like running and endurance sports and all. Football is just one of those things where you need to coordinate with too many people, find the right time and agree on a certain time. But I still like a football on my feet, even if it's just me and just I'm alone as well. So yeah, I think eventually getting over that concept of it's not happening for you at a pro level. I think a lot of people go through that love and hate relationship. Someone back in college told me that. I mean, this guy was at West Ham Academy for like 12 years or something, and then he got released and he was like, I hated football after that. I was like, I can't relate to that. Like, I don't know how you could hate football. And then 2 years or 3 years later, post college, I was like, I get what he was saying. So I think it's amazing to see you at the point you're at now. So good job on sort of evolving with your own journey and finding yourself as you go along. But yeah,
Yeah, I think
thanks. Yeah.
sorry. Really
Hmm.
I think most people who like you hear about football and you hear about all these sports. Like it's called the world's game, right? Most people like football. Most people like there's just so many people on earth who love this sport.
Yeah.
0.2 of them are or 0.1, 0.001 are professionals
Yeah.
in any sense of the word. And you really have to learn that, these people play the sport because they love the sport, regardless of whether they're going to go pro, regardless of what
Correct.
they're going to do in the future, what their aspirations were in the past, what they will be in the future.
They're all in.
They love the sport and they're like 70 years old, 40 years old, 30 years old, 2 years old. They love the sport regardless of where they're playing it, how they're
Yeah.
playing it. And I think you have to realize that you don't have to be pro in order to like
Yeah.
really
That's
care
the
and love
beauty of
about a
sport.
sport.
That's the beauty of sport.
And I
Absolutely.
think I think the first time I met you was like in a like a Adidas arena. Do you remember? It was like
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. I had
Yeah.
no clue who you were. I just went to go play like football with my friends. And I
Yeah.
like get told that either you're gonna be there or your friend's gonna be there.
Hmm.
I don't remember seeing you. I'm sure we played against each other at some point, but I think it's funny that even before we started like working together, I think this was maybe when I was like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Like I met you. I
Yeah.
like came across you then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Good, man. Well, I'm wishing you luck for your upcoming semester and
Thank you.
hope things keep going in your direction. And yeah, I'll keep in touch with you to hear about your journey.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for today, man. I really appreciate this. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Instagram.